Welcome to the official Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society's podcast. I'm your host, Barnaby, and you're listening to Whispers from the Dark. From the Dark. I am your host, Barnaby, and we are down at the Chicago Paranormal Convention in Summit, Illinois. Mr. Jack Chavez is running it. You should know him. He's been on our show. He talked about like rakes and pale night crawlers. And today with me, we got Ma.
Hi.
How you doing, Ma?
I'm okay.
Good.
Still alive. Still awake.
Very good. So on the show today, we have another podcast. And he's going to be starting off things. I'm going to let him go ahead and introduce himself and tell you about what he does and his podcast. All right, why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself and tell us about your show.
Oh, my name is James Whelan. I'm the host of the Ganzfeld Files podcast. Started about 2 years ago when me and a friend of mine were just playing around with the Ganzfeld experiment, which is you take a ping pong ball, cut it in half, and you put one on each eye. You shine a red light on the ping pong balls, and you listen to white noise. So we started doing that. Some weird stuff started happening. I started to hear voices and whispers in the white noise. Someone, like an entity or ghost, like came and walked up next to me. And I was like, well, we got to make this into a podcast. we got to do this. So, and since we got about 13 episodes now, sometimes it gets really, really weird. It gets spooky. Like I once saw this Baphomet type creature in my mind. It was like covered in eyeballs, which is super strange. Freaked me out. So I had to jump out of the session and take the headphones off. But yeah, we tried it a bunch of times. We haven't gone like out into the field or to any haunted locations yet. We mostly just do it in my apartment, which is probably not responsible. So
Bring it home with you, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and it's something that people can do at home. It's very low tech. You just need red light, ping pong balls, and white noise. But I will suggest that you do some protection before you do it. You know, have some sage or something on standby. So, yeah. Thanks for letting me come on and say hello.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, why did they originally start doing that? Do you know like the history of the original experiment and stuff?
So originally it was a sensory deprivation experiment in the 1930s. Wolfgang Metzger came up with that to just test sensory deprivation in humans. But in the 1970s, it was Charles Honorton who tested telepathy. So he had one person in one room looking at a picture of something, and then somebody with the Ganzfeld set up in a different room. So they were supposed to figure out like what that person was seeing on the picture. So and then they would test the accuracy. So, but that's pretty much all they did with the experiment. Now, like me and a couple of friends of mine are taking it a little bit further, and we just have one person doing it without the sender. So we just have the receiver, and it gets wild, you know.
It's kind of like remote viewing, kind of a little bit, because you have the person with whatever they're trying to look at, and then the receiver trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and I have done that, a little bit of remote viewing stuff. So what I would do is I have a picture inside a manila envelope, and the person who is in the Ganzfeld, they don't know what it is. So I've had them like psychically view what's inside the envelope, and we've had some pretty good results with that as well. There's something about the Ganzfeld experiment that assists in your like psychic abilities. So if you're someone who's not a natural psychic, you can still have like this ESP type thing, experience. Yeah.
I think everyone is capable of it.
Oh,
absolutely. It's just a matter of figuring out how to unlock it, and getting it. Like any other muscle, you gotta exercise it and expand it and stuff, and get it to work better. Yeah.
The most recent thing we did, I was contacted by aliens, which is weird to say out loud. I mean, every time I say that, I'm like, man. But yeah, I was doing the session, and suddenly I was surrounded by these these beings or entities, and they were showing me their city, like where they live, and apparently they were doing an experiment on their side as well. And they were all like cheering and clapping as they're like, "Oh yeah, it worked!" You know, they can't believe it. So that was one of our weirder experiments. So there's been like ghosts, there's been like kind of dark entities, and there's also been aliens. So, I mean, I believe in the whole unified field theory. Like you guys have the cryptids and the anomalies and stuff. So yeah, I believe in that.
So what did the aliens look like?
One I could really only make out. Well, most of them are wearing like, it looked like they had masks on, and the masks had these like portholes on the right side. So they had like these little, I guess there was eyeballs in there. I don't know. I don't know, but there's like glass portholes on like 3 of them on the right hand side of each mask. And at the time I couldn't tell if they were like ceremonial masks or if they were like functional masks, like to help them breathe or something. I'm not sure, but that's been the thing about this podcast is like I have a lot of questions and no answers. Just exploring.
Really cool. So how does the podcast work? Like, obviously they can't watch you do it. So how is it translated from visual to the audio?
So when we'll start off like recording, and I'll introduce the guest, and then they'll go into the Ganzfeld experiment, and then I'll just record them on audio. Sometimes I do video. I also have a YouTube channel that like I put some videos up there. And then after they do their session, I usually do like a 15-minute session. Once they come out of it, then we discuss like what they saw. So at some point I'd like to get like a sketch artist to come in and like, draw some stuff that we saw.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I actually, one of the past episodes we just had on the show here, I talked about, I went to Vernal, Utah to a convention, and there was a guy there that did these psychedelic trips, but it was through light.
Yeah.
Kind of similar to what you're talking about. So you just had your eyes closed, and there was a white strobe light and like music playing, and the strobe light would change like the patterns in your eye and stuff, and cause you to have these like hallucinogenic experiences and stuff. And anybody that's listening to our show, go back and listen to that episode. But so you said that you use red light though.
Yeah, we use red light, and that's pretty much all we do with that. You can use white light. It sounds like he had a different kind of setup, but very similar effects that would happen. But I primarily use red light because that's what they used back in the 70s. So I'm basically just copying what the original experimenters were doing. I've noticed that the something to do with the band of red light has less interference psychically, and that's my very basic knowledge of how that works. So that's why we use it. We could try different colors. We could try white light. I haven't done it yet, but I'm probably gonna get into it. We did like a strobe effect, and that it was a little bit jarring. So we don't really do it that much.
I was going to ask if you had the red light on solid or if it was like the strobe was.
Yeah, usually it's on solid, but sometimes we do strobe, and it can be kind of aggressive, but you still see things. I've seen like fractal patterns when I do it, and other friends have seen like snakes, but they're in a fractal kind of pattern. So yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, totally.
Where can people find you? Like, want to listen to it or watch your videos and stuff?
You can find me on YouTube. I'm on Instagram. Just search for the Ganzfeld Files podcast on Instagram. I'm also on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you can get your podcasts.
Cool. Can you spell that for people listening?
Yeah, it's I gotta pull it. I gotta there it is. It's Ganzfeld Files podcast. So it's a Ganzfeld. So if you also Google the Ganzfeld experiment, you'll see that too. You'll see the spelling. Yeah. If you want to know more, you can read up on it. Yeah, that's it. That's me.
Definitely.
So,
Yeah, we'll put
cool.
the links in the show notes for everyone, but some people driving and listening and stuff, it's easier just to hear it spelled out. So I always
yeah,
like
there we go.
to get that in there for people too. But yeah, thanks for coming out, and hope
man.
you're having a good day at the show here. So.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much, man.
All right.
Whispers from the Dark will be right back after this quick message from our sponsors. Winter is just around the corner, and it will be here before you know it. Are you or someone you know sick of dealing with snow? Are you paying an outrageous amount for snow removal every time it snows? Look no further than Eric's Winter Services for all your snow removal and snow hauling needs. That's not all. They also do lawn care, landscaping, and tree trimming. To get an estimate, contact Eric at 920-255-8592 or email ericswinterservices@gmail.com. Like them on Facebook at Eric's Winter Services. Serving Wisconsin's Fox Valley area. Eric's Winter Services. Snow flurries? No worries.
If you're a fan of the paranormal world, then you'll love WLTK DB Talk Radio. Talk shows bringing you the latest on everything paranormal, cryptozoological, metaphysical, true crime, psychic readings, and more. The truth is here and now on WLTK DB Talk Radio at WLTKDB.com.
How are you doing? Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Robert Galvin. I go on to a lot of haunted investigations in the Chicagoland area. I've been into the paranormal ever since I was a kid. You know, I'd listen to like Coast to Coast AM, and or my dad would listen to it, and then I'd listen to it, subsequently. And that just got me into like ghosts and cryptids. I really loved cryptids growing up. I did have a few like ghost experiences growing up, where like I'd be at my grandma's house, and there'd be these like, I'd have these weird dreams of like walking around her house, but I wasn't sleepwalking. It was just like these visions. Doors would move on their own. There was this one back room that was like turquoise. I always had a really nasty feeling in there. It was like an unfinished bathroom. And I know that like the TV would turn on its own, you turn it off, it would turn back on. There were weird stuff with the phones. That stuff I don't really remember as well. That was more so my parents that remembered that happening. But that was some of the first paranormal stuff I dealt with. But at the time, I wasn't even fully sure that was happening until years later looking back. Then I would go on a ghost investigation with some people I knew at work. And there was one time where we didn't see anything there, but I said, I hope nothing follows me home. And at that second, a red dot was seen over my head. And when I went home, there was this little like bird skeleton I had. It was like a Halloween decoration. And it was on a windowsill, and this window would not open. There's no air vent or anything that would push it. It was like all the way across the other side of the room. And that really freaked me out. But then my sister would get a haunted doll, and she brought it back home. And there was so much that happened. I don't want to, take too long to go over it.
Oh, go ahead. Take your time.
Oh, okay. Well, I remember there was Wi-Fi issues. There was my lights kept going out. Like it'd be one light, like I think it was one light. Like I had 3 lights on a lamp I had. One went out, and then a few hours later, I think another went out. And then I asked my sister if she could ask the haunted doll if like the doll was doing it, and the doll said yes. And how she asked the doll yes or no questions was she'd use this like necklace, and it would swing one way for yes, one way for no.
Kind of like a pendulum.
Yeah, it was a pendulum. But she used something that her grandma gave her, which was like a devil's horn. It's some Christian thing. I really don't know too much about that, but it's some Christian thing. And the ghost said it was doing it, and I asked, could you please not do that? Like, let me have at least one light so I have a light one in my room. And so the ghost said yes, and then that one remains. The animals in my house acted weird, my cats, especially Simba. And later on, that necklace disappeared, and we were looking everywhere for it. And so we started asking the haunted doll yes or no questions as to the location of where the necklace was. And I remember there was one point where I got a flashlight and I was going to look under the TV, and the flashlight basically died almost immediately. And then I turned around to look at my sister, and I saw this like white dot like dart away from me. And that really freaked me out. Then we went in the basement because it led us into the basement, and we were just kind of getting lost as to where this necklace was. And then we asked for a sign, and then my cat Simba came downstairs, and he was acting really weird. And I think we came to the conclusion that he was kind of fighting the spirit, like he didn't really want to listen to what it was saying. Eventually, he just laid down upstairs, but it was a weird night. It was a really weird night. And when that ghost was there, I remember the first time I saw that haunted doll. I think its name was Mandy. Like it's the only doll I've ever seen where like my eyes hurt when I saw it. Like it felt like they were like raised. I don't know how to describe it. Like my whole eyes hurt, my sockets hurt. And so that was probably one of the craziest experiences I've had. But then years later, I would be with I'd meet Mike. And we'd start going on ghost investigations. We went with a couple different ghost groups. Eventually, we met Jack Chavez, who's running this con. And then he started like introducing us to different places, and we go there. And I don't know, like the past, I have to say like 2 years, I've had a bunch more experiences too. Like there was one time where I was in, I think it was the Fowler Theater. And I was walking to a group of people, and I turned around and I saw like this, I was walking towards them, and I saw this person that was crouching down, and I thought it was just someone getting their stuff, their supplies, their bag. And so as I was turning around, I was like, wait, something didn't look right about that. So I looked back at it, and it looked like this little boy is what it looked like to me. It was like solid black, and it was like crouched down between like the aisle, sort of at the end. And then it's a little hard to explain. It like went down and then into the aisle, and that really freaked me out because I've never seen anything like that before. Like that was another level. And I didn't tell anyone at first. I just kind of shook, and I went to the group, and they were just talking to each other. So I actually went to the owner or the guy who's running the tour or whatever. Or I think he's the owner of the museum or the theater. Yeah. And he said there was a little girl that sometimes plays tricks on people there. So I mean, I thought I saw a boy, but it looked like a child. So that was really freaky to me. And then the second apparition encounter I had was I was at Indiana State Sanatorium, and I think our group investigated it not long after some big TV show investigated it. I don't know, because we were there really early before a lot of the renovations. And there's this area where these 4 hallways meet, and we had some equipment there, so there was some like lighting there. And I remember I was down one of the hallways, and we were all investigating in each one of the hallways. And I was just doing like an EVP thing, and I was using the flux tube to try to contact spirits with my friend Mike. And then I turn, and I see this like hunched over figure dart from one hallway to the next. And it almost like freeze framed when I saw it. It was really strange, and the best way I can describe it is, I feel goofy saying this, but it was like the Loveland Frogman. You know that like picture you see on when you search Google for Loveland Frog? That's what it looked like. It was like exactly like that, but it was solid black, and it just like darted. And what was really cool about that experience was later on I would find out one of the other investigators actually saw the same thing, but we hadn't talked to each other yet about it. We just told each other's, sectioned off groups about it. So when we met later on, we realized, we saw the same thing. She said it was more like an old man is what she saw, so she must have got a better look than I did. But that was crazy to me. That was one of the craziest. That was probably a good summary of like the experiences I've had. I've had like a few others of like disembodied voices. I got scratched at I think it's the funeral home in Cicero where I first met Jack. And actually my friend Mike got scratched too. He got scratched first. So the ghost was telling him to stay out of the room. and then eventually he, walked into the room, and so then he started feeling an immense pain, and we saw the scratches forming on his back. And a similar thing happened with me. I stopped ghost hunting for about like 7 months, and then I started up again with Jack and Mike. And then I was getting a little frustrated because we weren't, like the whole night, there was not a single shroud of evidence. There was just nothing we were getting. So I was getting a little more testy with the spirit there. I know it's bad. But, I was tired, and then all of a sudden I feel this immense pain on my back when I was asking it questions. And I like, is this happening? And then I went to Mike and I asked, hey, can you shine like a flashlight? And sure enough, there were scratches forming. And then I asked the spirit, did you do this? And this was the only response we ever got that whole night. It said yes on the flux too. It lit up green, which meant yes. So that was probably another crazy event I had. But yeah, that was just like a handful of them.
Sounds like you've had a bunch of experiences there.
Yeah, I've never actually like set them all together before, so it's nice to have them all together there. The only other one I could think of was at Randolph. That was one of the first investigations I went on with like a group, and I felt like this finger like tap, this like coldness on my back and my neck, like someone poked me, and I thought there was a camera back there, so I'm like, okay, I bumped into the camera, but it was actually farther back than I thought. So that was another experience I had. But yeah, I've had quite a few, more than I realize, I guess. Like I don't know, but
I always find it interesting when I go back to work on the weekdays, and they're like, oh, did you do anything interesting this weekend? And I went, well, I went looking for Bigfoot, saw a UFO, and I did a paranormal investigation. No, that's the same. It's a typical weekend for me. And then after a while, you start to realize that this isn't a normal life, and like this isn't normal. And wow, I really do some weird things, and it starts to get really interesting, So like you said.
Yeah, it's so interesting, like you said, with talking to people about it, because a lot of times people either think like, whoa, that's a little, out there, or they'll all of a sudden start opening up about it. Mm-hmm. It's really crazy. You never really know until you start talking to the person.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if you saw my trailer out there and my car.
Oh, yeah.
Has all the stickers and everything. And on the way down here today, we stopped at the Lake Forest Oasis. And I got out of the car, and this like Sprinter van or whatever is parked behind us, and the guy waves me over. And I walk over to him because, obviously I have this weird-looking vehicle and stuff. And he goes, hey, I just want to let you know, I'm from Oregon, and we live out of this van. And this one time I was driving down the road and I swear we had Bigfoot at the side of the road. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And like you said, you start opening up about this stuff. You put the stickers on the vehicle and stuff, and you get these experiences. People come through and they want to talk to you. And that's super cool that, like people are willing to share about that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's important that people get their stories out there, It helps us understand the phenomenon better.
And that they have somebody to talk to.
Right.
A lot of the times there's such stigma about this that people think that they're, going to be ridiculed or something for bringing it out, and...
Yeah, I used to not like to talk about my sister having the haunted doll because, that was such a weird thing to me. My parents were not happy when they found out about that. So I used to kind of just keep that a little hidden. But now I like to talk about it because I think that's... it really was such a fascinating experience that happened. And, I mean, she had other haunted dolls, but I don't think they were really haunted. I think that one specifically, Mandy, I think that one was haunted.
So all that stuff that you had said about the necklace disappearing and the cat, that was all one night?
That was all one night, yeah.
Okay, because I was kind of picturing it being like a series of events, but so the lights and everything was all that one night?
Yeah, I think the lights might have been, I'd say really it was a span of 2-3 days. Like it was actually pretty rapid in how those events happened. I really wish I knew where that doll went.
I was just gonna ask you.
She last I heard, she gave it to Goodwill. So I don't think she believes in the ghost stuff anymore. I don't know why personally, but I don't think she really believes in that stuff as much anymore. So she ended up just, giving it to a Goodwill. And I really wish, not that I'd want a haunted doll in my house, but I really wish I knew where that doll was, because, you don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah, you don't know what it's going to do.
Yeah. You know what? It described itself as a djinn, actually.
Okay.
Do you know anything, like, what that would mean?
I do know what djinns are. Do you?
Yeah, but, like, how would that relate to the doll? I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, it's kind of like, if you're bringing in the energy to anything. A djinn is supposedly, like where you get the idea of a genie. So,
Okay.
these things, there's all different kinds of them. There's a whole lot of lore and stuff about djinns. Not just there's different kinds of them. They're almost like elementals in a way.
Okay.
But they're supposed to be very like trickster and kind of very powerful entities, depending which ones that you interact with. But the blue djinn are where you get the idea of the genie of the magic lamp and stuff.
Okay.
So that's where that lore comes from. And they supposedly, like, some of them can grant you wishes. The blue ones, for example. I'm not 100% like up on my djinn lore and stuff, but I do know, like I said, they're powerful. They're like elemental spirits in a way. They can attach themselves to things, like you said. Different cultures, basically, instead of saying that there's ghosts, they call everything jinn. Or instead of having fairy creatures, they're jinn. I can't remember who it was that was talking about this. I want to say it was Chris Fleming. Was talking about how he'd do these investigations and the house is supposedly haunted, but then you go there and they're like, oh no, these are jinn. And that's what these people believe, the different religions and stuff. So it's interesting.
Yeah, that could explain it. I also remember, because I actually did ask the doll some questions. I'm glad I did. I asked if it remembered where it came from. The necklace kind of went crazy. And then I asked, is it just hard to explain? Like, it's hard for us to comprehend? And it said yes. It apparently says it takes 20 years for it to switch from doll to doll. So every 20 years it switches. I don't know if has that ever happened?
I haven't heard any kind of story or anything like that, but
okay,
it's possible.
Okay, because that was another weird thing I remember. And then the last thing was, I remember she liked it when she was put on like the window, so she could see like storms coming by or like the weather. But she likes storms the most.
Interesting. We did actually investigate a haunted doll, and the doll did not like it being left alone.
Really?
Yeah, it liked to be part of the middle of everything. It wanted to be in like on display in the main room of a house, so that it felt like it was a part of it. And I believe the spirit that was attached to that was like of a little girl.
Okay. That's really interesting. When was that investigation?
That was over Christmas, New Year's of last year.
Okay.
So we actually had one of our team members actually owns it. It's on one of our episodes. Ruby, one of our Academy members, she actually owns the doll. And she brought it to Bean Snappers, where we do the tours and stuff. And we did a whole investigation one night while they were open with this doll upstairs and had all the equipment.
Oh, that's awesome.
And whenever we'd go upstairs to check on the doll, it was quiet, everything was fine. And when we walked away, all the equipment spiked.
Really?
So it was like it knew we were leaving, and it didn't want us to leave, and stuff like that.
Wow.
I actually took the doll home because we did an EVP session with it and all this stuff. And Ruby was concerned with what was on this evidence because obviously we hadn't seen it. So she wanted me to take the doll home overnight and stuff for the week until I could analyze what was there. And I brought the doll home, and there's my bedroom upstairs, then a hallway, and then there's the CAP's office where we keep all of our stuff and equipment and computers and that. And then the end of the hall is the bathroom. And I brought the doll in and I laid it out on the desk in the CAP's office. And I took some pictures of it and I said, okay, good night, I'm going to leave now.
Yeah.
And I walked out of that room, down the hall, and then into my room. And I was taking off my watch and stuff and putting it on the counter there. And from out in the hall, I hear a little voice, and it goes, "Mommy?" And I can't tell you that it was the doll or what this was, but I heard it, and I finished putting away the stuff that I was going to do, and I walked back in there, and I turned on the light, and I checked. I laid out the doll in a way that I could check if it moved.
Right.
And I made sure that it was sitting right where I had left it and everything, and I went, all right, your mommy's not here, but you're going to see her again soon, so don't worry. And I turned the light off, and I went to bed, and I went, that's the end of that. So,
Wow.
but that was my experience with Ruby's haunted doll.
That's crazy, man. I mean, it's got to be really startling to hear the voice all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah, I moved into my house in 2007, and I still live in the same house. And I've never had paranormal activity there ever since I moved in, up until I started poking at it. In 2019 was the first time that I started having activity, and it was to the point where I was packing up for when we were doing the investigations of the Burlington Woods, our first ever stuff.
Right.
And I had stuff in my kitchen like fly. I had like bottles that were on the counter, like empty soda bottles, and they'd fly off the counter and land on the floor and stuff. And I was like, hey, if that's you, make this stuff light up. If you're gonna bother me, you're gonna do it on camera.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't do it. And it got so intense that night that I heard something running down the hallway upstairs, and then what sounded like thumping down my staircase right next to me where I was in the living room. And I swear to God, something was going to come down that staircase, and I was going to see it. And I stared at it, and nothing happened. And that's when I got out the equipment, and I got the EMF meters out, and I got the cameras, and I said, all right, you want to make noise, you want to scare me, you want to do whatever, do it now. You got something to say, let's have it. Otherwise, I'm busy, leave me alone. And it got pretty weird at my house for a little while. And I ended up I saged, I Palo Santo'd, and I sweetgrassed the entire house. Upstairs, basement, attic, first floor, the entire house. And then I got a salt lamp. And that thing's been running ever since.
Oh, wait, a salt lamp?
A salt lamp, yep. It clears the ions in the air and kind of purifies its protection and stuff. So Himalayan salt is supposed to be, like salt. It banishes bad spirits and stuff. And I put that in my bedroom. And I haven't had too much weird stuff after that. But outside my house I have. But that's another story for another time.
Do you have to continuously keep up with the sages to make sure there's no further activity?
If I go somewhere that's weird and I don't feel good coming back from it, I will sage, and I will sage like some of the equipment and stuff like that. But for the most part, I only sage like once in a while when I get ambitious to do it. But like I said, my house is pretty clean. Nothing usually comes into it and bothers me. But
well, that's good, because it's always a little disturbing to have anything like follow you back or like start messing with your life. I don't know how people live in some of these haunted houses when they describe like what's going on. Like I've heard some crazy stories where I'd be like, I would have tried selling the house by now. But
well, we had I don't know if you've watched all the episodes or not, but we did Documenting Fear was one of the worst cases that we've ever dealt with.
Really?
Yeah, you can check it out. It's on our YouTube, Documenting Fear. It's about a family in Kenosha, and they called us in because they thought they were going crazy because they had all this weird activity and stuff in their house, and they just wanted someone else, a third party, to come in and see what happened. And we went there, and we had a few things happen throughout the night and stuff, but nothing too extreme, the typical whatever.
yeah.
And we went back home and went over all the audio, and we had full conversations of things talking to each other. Like, not to us, but two or more entities talking to each other on camera.
Whoa.
So, yeah, they actually were moving out of that house. They were going to, it was a rental duplex, and they moved out of the house and went to stay at a hotel. So,
That's crazy.
yeah. Documenting Fear.
I'll definitely have to give that a watch. I mean, the fact that they were thinking they were going crazy like that, That had to have had a big mental toll on them.
Oh, yeah.
Living there.
Yep. They were saging their house multiple times a day. They put holy oil. They got it, and they put little holy oil crosses all over their house and stuff. And I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on there. It was insane.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a strange, weird world out there.
Yeah, it is. It's like right when you think you understand everything, there's just a curveball's thrown at you, and then it just completely dismantles everything you know.
There's so many questions of what's going on and stuff, and every time you even get close to answering one, it leads to like 10, 20 more questions. So you never really get an understanding.
Yeah. I actually, you know what? I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
So it's kind of speculative, but what do you think ghosts are specifically?
Well, that's a deep question.
I know.
I would have to say that there are multiple things, because like we were talking about with the jinn, I don't think that every ghost is a ghost, and I don't think that every demon is paranormal, and I don't think that there's a lot of things. There's elementals, there's fey creatures, and all this stuff. I would believe that there are ghosts that your spirit lingers on in some cases. Sometimes as a shadow of who you were, residual, or sometimes as interactive, where we've had cases. But again, who's to say that the spirit that knows everything about you and claims to be your grandma isn't something else?
That's exactly what I was thinking. Because truth be told, like, we don't really know what they are. Like, a lot of people, they make the conclusion before they reach to that conclusion. They already have it made up in their mind, whether it's like religious or scientific or whatever their view of the paranormal is, or ghosts, I should say specifically. But I mean, in reality, like, we do these ghost tours all the time, right? Like, everyone does these ghost tours. What if this thing, it could be an animal, it could be, I've heard people say aliens, I've heard crazy stuff before, but it could be something that's just mimicking what it's heard, or mimicking being something you're familiar with. Like, in all reality, we don't really know what they are. So that's why I'm always curious what people, think of them. Because it really could be anything. We know they're there. We know some of the things they do and some of the things they're attracted to. And, in some regards, how they may feel about things. That makes sense, especially with, like, the haunted doll aspect. Mm-hmm. But we still don't really know fully what they are. Are they deceased people? Are they... I agree with your conclusion a lot more, where it's kind of a bunch of different things. I don't know what name you would apply to them, but I definitely agree with that more.
That's why when we get called in to do investigations and stuff, like, people say, well, I have a ghost in my house, can you help me get rid of it or something? And I'm like, well, I don't know that it's a ghost, or what should I do about it, Right. Well, I'm not going to tell you to sage your house to get rid of something, if I don't know what that something is. So until we can go in and poke at it a little and see what happens and what it wants to do in that, there's no way I can tell you, what to safely do, because, sage and, all this stuff, it's great for certain things, but it can also tick off a lot of other things, right, or not have any effect at all. And now here's this entity that, it's a bad energy or whatever, and you sage your whole house, and it goes, haha, all right, I'm just going to go hide for 2 weeks, and then I'm going to come back and F your stuff up, Yeah. And it had nothing to do, the sage had no effect, but it pretended to, Right. But, so, I mean, all you can do is research, gather evidence, see what happens, and see where things go, because at the end, you really don't know what something is, Are
there any specific, like, books you would recommend for research? Or maybe, sites?
Personally, I can't recommend anything like that. I don't have a lot of time to read. Okay. I listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks, but if it's not on audiobook, I don't have time to sit down and read. I'm at conventions or doing podcasts or doing investigations, and I feel it's important to get out there and, like we're doing now, and talk to actual people and stuff. But if you're into Bigfoot, I highly recommend Bigfoot and Beyond with Cliff and Bobo. That is a very scientific, very awesome show. And for paranormal, I really like Chris Fleming. I can't think. Do you know what Chris Fleming's podcast is? I'll look it up. I would say Chris Fleming's podcast, though, is very good. I've listened to some of the episodes of that, and he's very intelligent, very good guy.
All right, I'll definitely have to look into his. You said he has a YouTube channel?
Yeah. Yep.
I'll definitely have to look
not a
into
YouTube, a podcast.
Oh, okay. Is it on Spotify?
It is on it's on Apple Podcast, and I know it's on Spirit Talk.
Spirit Talk?
Spirit Talk with Chris Fleming.
Okay, yeah, I can start listening to that.
So that's definitely he was actually on Whispers from the Dark as well.
Oh, really?
So we interviewed him down at the Janesville Paranormal Metaphysical Convention. And he's got a great podcast, great guy, super cool. He's from Chicago, so he lives right here, where we are today.
Oh boy!
But, definitely check him out. I can't really recommend any other ones off the top of my head. So
no, that's okay. It's a start.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I definitely want to branch out and start listening and reading the more stuff related to that.
I will also give a shout out to Paranormal Almanac.
I think I've listened to them before.
Awesome. Kurt Sandvig. Sorry, buddy. Kurt Sandvig is awesome. I was just on his 200th episode, and he just came out on an episode of one of our shows as well. Super nice guy, and he's a very broad spectrum of things, everything from Bigfoot to paranormal and stuff, and he'll get you a lot of information. Not so much the technical, but stories and legends and stuff like that. So if you're looking for something to diving board off and to deep dive into, he's great for that.
All right, I definitely will.
Cool.
There's one more thing.
Yeah,
Just
buddy.
this one more, and then I know.
No, you're fine.
So I heard this crazy theory. I just want to see what you think of it, or if you've heard of it. It's about the Dogman in general.
Okay.
Some people were saying that their idea of where it came from was there's this animal called a maned wolf.
Yep.
It has these really
I know
long...
maned wolf. Yep.
Yeah, they say that thing eventually made its way north and got bipedal. Yeah, I know. What do you think of that one? Because that was one crazy, or out there, I should say, theory someone had.
Well, that would be great if they were only down in Texas and stuff. Maned wolves are from South America.
Right.
And they're reddish. They're really cool animals if you haven't seen one of these. But I don't think that's what a Dogman is.
That's kind of, I agree, but I just wanted to see your opinion.
Yeah, no, I think they're really cool animals, but I don't think so. I honestly, man, I hate to say it because they're supposed to be cryptids, but I think there might be something more paranormal to the Dogman aspect.
I completely agree, because of that guy in Bray Road.
Lee Hampel?
I think so. He caught mists and I think UFOs.
Yep,
Yeah,
Lee
oh.
Hampel.
Oh, yeah.
As I pull out the DVD of our stand here with Lee Hampel. Yeah, this guy right here. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we got to do obviously an investigation of his property. Super cool, and he's got a lot of evidence down there as well. But I don't think it's a maned wolf.
Yeah, I assumed there was something more paranormal after hearing some of his stories.
There's a lot of weird things with the Dogman where people claim that they're one-dimensional, flat, like a cardboard cutout of them.
That kind of reminds me of the apparitions I saw. The one that was the Loveland Frog and the little boy. That's how I would describe them. They're almost flattish, and then the sides of them were kind of moving. You ever watch? I hate to say Ed and Eddie. You know how the corners are moving. Well, for that animation, that's how the style was. It was a little similar to that, but toned down, not as extreme. It was just something that your eyes are having trouble processing. But yeah, flat.
Ah.
That's all most of the sightings have been?
Not most of them. No, I don't mean to say that that's what Dogman is, but I have heard several, I would say probably 10 reports at least, of these things being flat cutouts. And when they move, they still move like an animal, but they're only, was it two-dimensional, I guess. Flat.
So they could be interdimensional. I do like that theory a lot. That would make sense as to why we never found a body too.
Well, there's a lot of that's a whole podcast as to why we don't find bodies, There's a lot of animals that eat them. Porcupines eat the bones and stuff, and even deer will eat bones if they need the nutrients from it. So
yeah, that's true. There's a lot of herbivorous animals that have eaten meat. I mean, there's footage of horses eating chicks, giraffes eating just meat.
Yep,
it's crazy.
Yeah. So bodies, I've never found that as any really point to die on as to far as whether or not these things exist or not. So all right, man. Do you have a paranormal group that you go out with? Like, is there a team or something? Do you have a website or anything? I know that you had a booth here today, right?
Yeah, we haven't really formed a group yet. I've just been investigating with my friends Mike and Anthony and Jack whenever he's available, and we're trying to work on maybe starting a group. We're going to see what happens. I know there have been a couple names we've been floating around with, but we'll see. You could just message Jack if they have any, or Paranormal Chicago. If you ever want us to go on an investigation or want to contact us, that'd be how to do it for now.
So, and Paranormal Chicago, it doesn't have a website, does it?
I'm not sure if it has a website. I think it definitely has a Facebook.
Yep. There's a Facebook group called Paranormal Chicago. We'll try and put a link to it in this show, I think, with the show notes if I remember, and definitely that. Otherwise, look up Jack Chavez because I know the link is in his episode that he was on. But yeah, he's got a Facebook group where he posts all his events and stuff, and if you want to get a hold of you to do some investigating down here in the Chicagoland area.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Sounds good, man. All right, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thank you.
Yep. All right, that's our show for this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Whispers from the Dark. To find out more about cryptids, anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, visit us at our website at wisconsincaps.com. That's Wisconsin, CAPS.com. There you can find links to all of our social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and our Patreon. You will see links to our online store as well, where you can get t-shirts, DVDs, and more. If you click on the public events page, you can find out where you can meet us in person and all the public events we have coming up. If you enjoy our podcast or our YouTube shows, please consider becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/WisconsinCaps. There you can find behind-the-scenes pictures and videos from all of our media, as well as bonus footage and evidence that we have collected. If you have encountered something you can't explain, we want to hear from you. Visit our website and click on Submit a Report on our main screen. You can choose to leave your contact information or simply remain anonymous. You can also reach us via email at wisconsincaps@gmail.com. If you would like to be a guest on our show, please contact us on our Whispers from the Dark podcast page on Facebook, or send us an email at wisconsincaps.com. Remember to like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen or watch or find us.